Okay, so now let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is Nurhan Suidki, the English gamer, once again, and welcome to IELTS Talks podcast. On IELTS Talks, we have guests from all around the world. We have IELTS trainers, IELTS teacher trainers, and even IELTS candidates with a band score of 7+. Up till now, we had 2 episodes from the podcast. The first one was with Dr. Anas Ghazi from Jordan. He's an IELTS trainer. And also the second episode last week was with Dr. Muhammad Khalil Musa from Egypt. He's also an IELTS trainer. And today we have a very, very special episode with a very special guest from Egypt again. And he's an IELTS teacher trainer. And now let me introduce him to you. So he's the CEO and founder of British Training Center. He holds an MA in TESOL and Applied Linguistics from the University of Leicester. He's a CELTA and CERT TESOL tutor and an IQA for training qualifications UK. So he is Dr. Shady Abuyusuf. Welcome, Mr. Shady.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the warm welcome. I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome. Sure. Actually, I'm really, over the moon to have you today.
Oh,
and
thank you so much.
Are waiting. Yeah, lots of people are waiting.
The honor is mine. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So actually, I've introduced you like formally. So do you want to add something else?
Well, no, I was just still a learner, doing my best to learn, still taking courses till this moment. So yeah, so I never stop learning. That's the final say,
yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so let me also tell people on our Facebook page, of course, you can ask questions, but at the end of the podcast, after finishing all my questions. Okay, so now let's get started. Today, Mr. Shady is going to tell us more about how to teach IELTS. Okay, so are you ready now? I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I have a question for you, which is, why do you think IELTS has become this famous as an exam?
Well, I believe famous, IELTS has become that famous because first, the name of Cambridge. Well, Cambridge University designs the course, Cambridge Assessment English, which is part of Cambridge University. So that's a big name, and that big name gives a lot of reputation for the IELTS exam. So that's number one. Number two, I would say also the unique nature of the IELTS exam. And what I mean by this is that how it is designed, targeting the 4 skills, and especially when it comes to the speaking section. You don't talk to a computer, you don't talk to a machine. It's a real interview with a human being who listens to you, who can see your facial gestures, reacts according to what you say, and that makes it a very practical exam, and that's number two. Number three, also the security measures. The exam has very high security measures, so it is guaranteed that if you hold an IELTS report, it means that you did the exam. Okay, you followed the same procedures followed in different parts of the world. And this, of course, adds to any exam reputation. That's why IELTS recently has become the most famous English language exam in the market.
Yeah, you're right. So, so do you teach how to teach IELTS, or what about TOEFL? Is it just IELTS?
Well, I mean, for me, well, I taught TOEFL at a stage of my life, and and we do also, and we train people to teach TOEFL, and I would say designing teacher training programs on TOEFL are far more challenging than designing teacher training programs for IELTS, to be honest. It's because I'm not very happy with the way TOEFL books are designed. Because when you look at them, to be honest, they're not interesting at all in the terms of designing. They don't cater for the motivation of the students, which is absolutely the opposite when you look at the IELTS course books or the course books produced by different publishing houses for the sake of teaching IELTS, because you see that they have those lovely colors and pictures. There is a unity of topic. There is a harmony. This kind of harmony is something that we miss in the TOEFL training books. I've never seen one designed this way, and this requires more effort from the teacher trainer when it comes to the TOEFL, and not only the teacher trainer, the normal teacher, because if you want to deliver a communicative lesson focusing on TOEFL, it's more difficult in terms of designing. Okay, when you try to do that with IELTS, so IELTS, you know, is better in this regard.
Yeah, that's right. So let me ask you another question. Is teaching IELTS different from teaching general English, and in what way?
Wow, I mean, that's a very important question. The reason why I'd say it's a very important question is because first, they can never be the same. There are differences, of course, okay? But at the same time, some people, you know, when they start teaching IELTS, you don't know what happens. They quit everything they know about communicative teaching, and they turn it into a kind of a very traditional, okay, you know, class of English language. And what I mean by very traditional, it turns into a lecture. And sometimes this lecture is even is in a first language. And I would say, well, no. Yes, IELTS teaching is different, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't follow the normal communicative principles of teaching, right? So, and I always say to my friends and my trainees, I say, if we need leading, when we talk about a topic like traveling, and the leading is a stage where we generate a student's interest, as of course you know.
This is at the beginning of the lesson.
Exactly. If we need that for a topic like traveling, then we need it when we talk about manufacturing glass. Because these are some of the topics you encounter in IELTS exam. Manufacturing glass. So boring. So of course,
right.
Exactly. Everybody is interested in traveling. However, we keep saying you have to start with a leading. So what about manufacturing glass? You can't just get your students to start reading a passage without even getting them interested in this process somehow. And that's why I would say, yes, it is different because we need to cater for the techniques of the exam. We need to cater for sometimes the timing, okay, for each part, strategies. But that doesn't mean that we would forget everything we learned about, you know, teaching when we come to the IELTS, because that's the thing that I really hate, you know.
Yeah, you know, that's why I sometimes like to teach IELTS speaking. You know, I have a special course for speaking, because in speaking you have different topics like travel, like, you know, different kinds of topics. But when it comes to writing, yeah, it's gonna be boring, especially for academic writing.
Well,
so
I would agree with you. Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, of course, to get your students interested in some of the topics discussed in academic writing, but all we're asking is that teachers do their best, not to just lay back and then decide, okay, I'm not doing anything. Let's just, you know, get to the exam and talk about strategies. And
yeah, that's right. Okay. So let's ask a different question. So how can an English teacher be an IELTS trainer? IELTS trainer. So what do you think about if somebody get CELTA or TOEFL and then they want to start teaching IELTS? What do you think about that?
Well, I would say the question is it enough? I would say no. As a CELTA tutor and as a TOEFL tutor, I would say no. It can't be that direct. You know, you can't just finish your CELTA or your TOEFL and then the next day, oh, I'm an IELTS trainer. Well, no, it's not
right away after finishing it.
You need to be familiar with how the exam is designed. You need to be familiar with the strategies. you need to seek also support from professionals who've been in the field of teaching IELTS, okay, communicatively, because that's very important. When I say, the reason why I say that this adverb communicatively is very important, because some people teach IELTS as if you were teaching Sanawiyya Amma, and that makes me, you know, I hate it. You know,
this happens, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, come on, don't do that, and don't give me excuses for that, because finally those students will have a speaking section. So if you teach them traditionally, you're not helping their speaking section when you come to it. Okay, but I would say no, it's not enough. CILTA is not enough. Yes, sometimes we might focus on CILTA on teaching exams, but that would be just, you know, one session, you know, and it's not enough at all.
Yeah. So what should they do? What do you think?
Well, I mean, again, listening to people who are involved with teaching IELTS, like yourself, like you do that, you have, you know, your own page, you talk about it all the time. So talking to professionals who do it, okay. Again, looking at course books designed for teaching IELTS in a communicative way, like one of these books, New Insight into IELTS, for example. That's a lovely book. When you look at it, it follows the strategies of communicative teaching, and at the same time, it caters for the IELTS exam. So it's lovely. Or taking courses where they actually get trained to be IELTS trainers. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. So do you think a course like How to Teach IELTS would be a good course?
Well, I mean, again, I would say people do things differently. So I'm not in a position of marketing what I do myself or what we do, because I can't praise myself, right? Because if you ask me, oh yeah, I'm very great, and yes, our course is amazing.
Yeah.
Of course, I mean, I wouldn't say something different, but I would say the kind of training I provide, or we provide, is a very practical training, because candidates would teach in order to graduate. So it's not only about sitting at your seat and listening to someone telling you about the IELTS exam. No, it's about standing up and teaching 4 lessons. And every lesson is for 1 hour, focusing on a different IELTS skill, like listening, reading. So, okay. So I would say, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So now let's talk about how to be an IELTS examiner. What do you think about that?
Okay, well, I mean, it's of course it's prestigious, you know. I mean, to go for IELTS exam, but the problem is not that prestigious, because you can't tell anyone.
Yeah, it's just prestigious for yourself, you know.
It's just, that's the bad thing about it. When you become an IELTS examiner, you can't say you're an IELTS examiner. That's number 1. Number 2, you can't teach IELTS anymore. You're not allowed. And you sign a contract that you would not teach it. So, and you can't put it on your CV. They make you sign on that. So it's not on your CV. It's not something you can say. It's not something you can write on Facebook. So if someone is trying to become an IELTS examiner because he wants, you know, to go everywhere, well, forget about it, because you can't do that. That's number 1. Now, answering your question, how you can become an IELTS examiner. Well, I would say, all what you need to do is to be at the level of C1 at least, right? Like you're a very, very good speaker of English language. And then you need to be recommended by a place. Okay, and we know that IELTS is being run in the world by 2 organizations. A British one, which is the British Council, an Australian one, which is IDP, which means that if you want to be an IELTS trainer, then this is where you go. You go either to IDP, or you go to the BC, to the British Council, or you go to an organization that works as a venue for one of them. Like, for example, you're teaching at a language center, and this language center has an IELTS venue for the British Council, or an IELTS venue for IDP. And then you go to the place to say, hey, look, I want you to recommend me to IDP so that I can become an IELTS examiner. Well, And then what happens after that is that you join a kind of a 2-day training. In this two-day training, okay, they familiarize you with what happens in terms of becoming an IELTS examiner and the things you need to do. And at the end of the day, they test you. How do they test you? They get you to actually assess 5 candidates. And if your assessment, okay, is accurate, then they say, okay, you've become an IELTS examiner. And then after that, when you start practicing examining, candidates, now what happens is that they moderate what you do in order also to make sure that you're following, okay, the right track. So that's how you become an IELTS examiner simply. So IDP, BC, that's where you go.
Okay, so thank you for your answer. So, but I also want to ask you about something. You've told us some disadvantages of becoming an IELTS examiner, you know, that you can't tell anybody about that, stuff like that. But let's tell people out there about the benefits of becoming one.
Well, I would say one of the most important benefits from my own point of view is that you start having this mind of judging people's skills quickly. It makes you very alert when it comes to this. So you listen to someone speaking and you go, hey, 7.5, oh, 5, oh, 6. So your mind works like that.
Yeah.
So you don't listen to people normally anymore. All the time your mind is assessing. And I find this really good when it comes also to other things you do. Like, for example, on a CELTA course, when we interview candidates, we need candidates at the C1 level. So it helps you if you're a CELTA tutor, for example, or a TEFL tutor, to place candidates quickly and know their levels, okay, without much effort. So that's one benefit I see. But if we're talking about the financial side, I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
This is another disadvantage, right?
Yeah, because some people think that, oh, he's an IELTS examiner. Oh, he's paid lots. No.
In dollars.
Yeah, no.
Or sterling pounds, maybe.
We're still in Egypt,
right?
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so actually, thank you so much for being honest. Really, I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Shady, as someone who is involved with teacher training in the Egyptian market, do you have remarks regarding some of the IELTS teaching practices?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned before, I had a discussion with a friend, and we were talking, I mean, about, teaching IELTS, in Arabic. And I'm known that I have a firm position against that. I don't think there is no reason why you should be doing this, okay? The only benefit I see is that you'll be able to put a lot of levels in one room at the same time. So it has a financial, benefit, right? But the disadvantages are, I mean, those people will not be listening to you speaking in English, and they are in need of that. They are in need of acquisition, especially when they're training up for the exam, right? So again, an exam like the IELTS cannot be taught like Sanawiyya Amma tests, because there is a speaking section in it, okay? And you have to cater for that. You have to expose the students to a lot of English. So that's how I see it. And this is one of the things that I don't like so much.
Okay, so Mr. Shady, why do you think some people who teach IELTS in Arabic are successful? We have some in Egypt and also in other Arab countries, they teach in Arabic. So why are they successful, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, I would say, imagine that, for example, I mean, because again, I'd say IELTS preparation is not enough to raise someone's level. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
IELTS preparation is to prepare someone for the exam so he knows the ins and outs. but it does not make someone better in English. I mean, maybe, a bit, but not like, for example, if we're talking scientifically speaking, if we want someone to move, kind of a band, at least this person needs to study for 120 hours in order to move yourself up half a band or something. So it's not easy, okay, to move up. So success happens, okay, for some people, even when they're teaching in Arabic, because they have the right knowledge. They're good. Nobody is saying that they're bad. We're just criticizing the methodology. But they have excellent information about IELTS. They know a lot about it. They know how to train up people. But good candidates who join, who have already excellent English, they wouldn't be affected so much by that. You see what I mean? It wouldn't affect them so much. So they can still go and nail it because their speaking is already fine. But some other people would lose the benefit of being exposed to English language in the training, which is something that I'm not against using Arabic, by the way, in the class. I'm against using Arabic as a medium of instruction. I believe there are a lot of useful usages of Arabic. Like if an IELTS trainer decided, for example, to use contrastive analysis when teaching something in writing or in speaking, I wouldn't, I wouldn't be against this, but his medium of instruction is still English. So Arabic can comes in, but not as a medium of instruction.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about artificial intelligence. So in this era of AI technology, do you think IELTS training can change?
Everything can change, including IELTS training, of course. But I believe IELTS trainers will be very lucky having ChatGPT-4, okay, supporting them. You might ask me, Shady, how? Quickly, I believe that ChatGPT-4 will be a real danger to publishing houses. Why? It's because, again, what do publishing houses do? They give you course books. They give you course books, maybe because some teachers are novice teachers, they can't design their own material. But experienced teachers still use course books because they don't have time to design, which is a problem, okay, that came to an end with ChatGPT-4. For example, let me give you this. You have now, let's say, a reading passage, an IELTS reading passage. And let's say it's about the history of libraries, okay? Let's imagine that this is the topic. And again, as an IELTS trainer, you only have this text. You need to create a lead-in for it. Maybe sometimes you'll need to pre-teach some vocabulary, okay? Maybe you will need a gist activity like matching headings, what happens in the IELTS, okay? Maybe another IELTS task. And finally, you need a speaking task. Yeah. Now, we know that in the IELTS, we have part 1, part 2, part 3 in speaking. Now, you only have the passage. You don't have this activity. All what you can do is that you can take it, give it to ChatGPT and tell them, I want you to give me a discussion on that topic that looks this way. Not only that, you can also ask them, I want you to design a graph, okay, related to the history of life, and then they give you that, and then you use it as task 2 in writing, or task 1, sorry, in academic writing. So it's amazing in that sense. It means that you can create your own material out of just some IELTS exams, and anything you can imagine in a second, it can be at your hand. Also, marking, right? So how much writing do you receive from your students? You would appreciate, I mean, a lot, right? You would appreciate having some AI technologies, some things for you. And then you can add your comments also and add your touch, but it would save a lot of time, okay? So again, I believe, yes, it is very important and it will help teachers involved in IELTS teaching a lot, especially with designing their own material and their own course books.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, Mr. Shady. So I guess I've finished my questions. So do you want to add something at the end of the podcast before
Well,
receiving, of course, before receiving the people's questions on Facebook?
So let's receive the questions first, and then
Okay.
have some people written questions.
Okay. So up to now, no. So now let's say you can type your questions. So everyone, you can just type the question. I'm going to read it to Mr. Shady.
Let me talk also.
Okay.
Let me give them some time till they write and talk about something important, because I don't know how I forgot to talk about this. But again, I always say to people in my teacher training course regarding the IELTS exam, or how to teach IELTS, I always say, when you design your own course, you have to differentiate between teaching and practice. Because this is a mistake that a lot of IELTS trainers fall in. They don't differentiate between practice and training. Let me give you an example. When I started teaching IELTS, and I was an office teacher at this time, I knew nothing about teaching principles or anything. It's funny. I'll tell you how my class looked like. It was a disaster. I would get in there, okay, and I've got my IELTS passages, and then read, and then I sit, and then they read, and then I give them the answer.
Oh, really?
Of course, I have the answer ready.
Yeah.
It's not teaching at all. I'm not teaching anything. So this is what we call practice. Now, a lot of IELTS trainers make that mistake. They turn their teaching into a practice. They just bring students in, and they give them IELTS tasks, and then they give them feedback. And feedback for listening and speak and read them, to be honest, is something that students can get at home.
Yeah,
because it's there. They don't need you for anything at all. If this is only what you're going to do, then they don't need you, to be honest. So, and that's a problem. I always say no. Always different. And that's why maybe you might have noticed that I said when I was talking about reading, if you want to pre-teach vocabulary. I receive this question a lot. Some teachers say to me, Shady, there will be no time in the exam. Why do you teach vocabulary? I say, bloody hell, because it's teaching now. Practice will come later. Okay, so don't damage your course by turning it into an endless, list of tasks to practice. Yes, practice is important, but it comes after you do your job.
Okay? Yeah. You know, I also remember when I was like an office teacher. Of course, I'm still, I'm still learning, but maybe 10 years ago when I started teaching and I was teaching TOEFL ITP, I also remember it was a disaster. My first like 2 or 3 sessions was a real disaster, really. But now, of course, we're trying to improve our methods and techniques and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see now questions. So I'm also waiting. We're also waiting for you. And I would like to say something that I was really honored to be one of your students, Mr. Shady. Yeah, I took a course with you before. Yeah, it was Train the Trainer, right? I guess it was the last round of Train the Trainer. Yeah, so I was really honored to have the course with you. Thank you so much. I learned a lot from you.
The honor is mine. The honor is mine. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. So now I guess we can end. So do you want to add something at the end of the podcast?
Well, I would say first, thank you so much for inviting me for this lovely podcast. It was actually great being with you. And as a last piece of advice for people, I would say the most important thing: teach IELTS in a communicative way. Not because it's an exam, you are allowed to make your class a hellhole. Students are already stressed because it's an exam. So for God's sake, teach it in a communicative way. I would say avoid turning your IELTS course into just practice, practice, practice without no actual teaching from your side, because it is haram, wallahi, right? Okay. Thank you so much, Nurhan.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Shady. So thank you, Mr. Shady. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. And wait for us, inshallah, next week. We are having also a different guest. He's also from Egypt. So wait for us next week, inshallah. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.